Hey friends, welcome back to our show where we ask what if to picture a world we can help create together. If you're new here, don't worry, you'll fit right in. And if you've been joining us every 2 weeks, welcome back. So let's dive right in. A theme that has remained consistent in our show is collaboration. Go ahead and listen to any episode and you'll find that this soft skill will emerge in every conversation we've had on this show. In fact, what if would not be possible without it, without our heroes' willingness to say, yes, let's collaborate on this. It is such a critical human skill in the social change ecosystem, and it goes beyond any one individual, organization, or government body. Today, we'll hear from Pauline, co-founder of Y East, on how the unique online platform is connecting impact-generating actors across East and Northeast India.
So I was born and brought up in and around Paris in a very protected environment. I think also it's worth mentioning that my education was Catholic. I went to middle school and high school that were also Catholic. So that's also kind of gave me a few altruistic values in that way. And then after a couple of years of preparatory class for the entrance to business schools, I entered a business university called HEC Paris, which is in the suburbs of Paris as well. And I think by then I already had a very strong idea that I wanted my career to be meaningful and fulfilling and useful in its core. Because, you know, if you consider your career at the level of your own individual, it is basically a lot of your time. Probably your full day from Monday to Friday at least is going to be dedicated to a career. So I think I quickly understood that this 80,000 hours that you will have throughout your professional life of work can be put to the service of the greater good in one way or another. And it really got me to take into account how impactful I was through my career every time I had to take a career decision. I was lucky in mainly two ways at HEC Paris. The first one is the university allows students to take a gap year off their studies. So before finalizing my master's degree, I took this gap year off, and with three friends of mine, we co-founded a not-for-profit, which was focused on what we call social impact assessments. So we did basically impact assessment studies for not-for-profits around the world for that year in Africa, Asia, and South America. Then came back to France, finished my master's degree. This is where I got lucky for a second time because HEC has this specialized master's called Sustainability and Social Innovation, which is the program that I chose. And then right after my graduation from this master's, I moved from Paris to Kolkata. Now, by then, I knew that I wanted to work in the education sector. Why? Is because I understood that it was one of the most impactful sectors. You are contributing to shaping the minds of future generations or generations that are close to be young professionals and professionals. And so I joined Techno India Group when I came to Kolkata. Techno India Group being this big educational conglomerate with more than 80,000 students from primary education to PhD level. So that was really interesting to really be able to cover the educational spectrum and take on that responsibility, thanks to my studies and my previous work, take on this responsibility of introducing sustainability-related topics and opportunities into the students' lives and curricula at Techno India Group. Last piece of the story about Y East is that when I moved from my hometown, Kolkata, I didn't know anyone. I was not professionally well connected to other professionals working in the sustainability space. And therefore, Y East came as this personal and professional need to be better connected and to frame and to structure this aggregating platform for organizations specifically working towards social and environmental impact in East and Northeast India, hence the name Why East too.
Why East, yeah.
And there are interesting connections between this network of organizations that is Why East in the sustainability space, and of course the students at Techno India, where you can basically provide living proofs to the students that they can combine their careers with doing impactful. Long story short.
That just makes me wonder, it's so important to have that exposure early on in your life to really be able to have that confidence in knowing that you want to be in this space. My journey is a little kind of similar, but it has those years where I was so lost, and I still wasn't able to really pinpoint as to where I want my career to be headed. And luckily I've found my true calling now. So I'm glad that you had that early on in your life. And
I mean, more and more universities would tend to now have masters dedicated to such topics, but still they are very few. To also bounce on what you were just saying, I think one of the key messages that I would love the youth to know at an early stage is to understand that they are the best advisors to themselves, and that it's not because society tells you that XYZ career is going to be better than another that these careers are actually meant for you. So maybe I think the main message, one of the key messages to convey to this youth is try to introspect and think by yourself on what is for you important for you to spend your days and weeks working on something. It has to take some space in your brain. It's about your life. It really, to a great extent, may define you to a great extent, your career choices.
I think that's very important. And you've given us an introduction about how Why East came into being and the purpose behind what you're doing. So if you could tell us how Why East is really connecting the individual and institutional actors and bringing them together and working together towards creating the desirable impact.
Great question. And Why East will never pretend to have cracked how we manage communities to the most optimized way. We're on our way. We're learning on a daily basis. But to give you a few elements, Why East was really born out of the observation beyond the personal need of further connecting with professionals. It was also born from the observation that most of the actors in the social space in and around Kolkata, East and Northeast India, and I'm sure it is also a reality in other regions of the world, it's a sector that is really fragmented. By that I mean there's a lot of great organizations, usually relatively small organizations, that are doing great work in their domain of expertise, in their own corner, but are yet to really connect with other like-minded organizations with whom they could find very nice synergies and complementarity, and therefore, through collaboration, reach further collective impact, as well as carrying more weight for advocacy and in balance with other sectors of the economy. And so it really was this idea, Why East was the carrier of this idea that we really need to first, getting to know each other is probably the very first point that we need to reach. And then, of course, collaborations happen in quite an organic way. So the way Why East has been doing that, and Why East is still relatively recent, so it's all work in progress. But is we have, of course, an online portal where organizations can sign up and provide some key details about their organizations. And therefore be together promoted and communicated about onto that one portal. It was also, the point of doing that was also to highlight great initiatives from the East and Northeast India. I think that came from the fact that when I moved to Kolkata, there was so many people telling me, well, Northeast and East India, nothing's really happening over there. While these same people were telling me there's so much potential that this region has. And so
definitely,
I was like, you know what, I am based out of Kolkata. I know I'm going to be there for a while. Let me try my best in the geography I happen to. So that's the online portal. And of course, we have also other communication tools. We have a common WhatsApp group. It also goes through a lot of social media interactions and posting in terms of sharing the opportunities that are happening in the network. And beyond this online connection, which is never enough and will never replace offline connections, we have been organizing what we call WAIST monthly meetups in Kolkata. And we started just before the pandemic, we started also a chapter in Darjeeling with this idea of creating local meetups, encounters on a monthly basis so that the community gets to really know each other physically. And to be able to also discuss directly. That's something that cannot happen very easily online. And the long-term ambition would be, and that it would be great to be able to do that soon, is to have a Kolkata chapter, a Darjeeling chapter, a Bhubaneswar chapter, Agartala chapter, Guwahati chapter, etc., throughout the region, so that we can have sustainability-related dialogues and connections happening throughout.
And that's so important. And that's one thing that really struck me when I was learning more about YEast and about the work that you're doing, is that the focus on bringing the organizations that have a common purpose. Like, we're all trying to do the same work. We're all trying to do something either for the benefit of the society or for the environment or for the planet as a whole. The work is often in silos, and that's where we're losing out. That's where we're losing out the power in coming together as individuals and institutions. And that is a message that I always want to carry out through this podcast, is we need to work together. No change is possible with us just doing our own thing in our own little corner, in our own little bubble in our state. States have to come together. The people from different states have to come together, because although our goals may be different, but in the end, we're all working towards the same purpose.
Another connected learning that I got to gather on the way is that I had written this really short article about what I call the changemakers syndrome. That is to say, these individuals, I think I would be part of them, but these individuals that want to change the world for the better. And they kind of take on this full responsibility on their shoulders. You probably are one of them too, right? And this is so mentally exhausting. Like,
it is.
I think we all need to understand that no collective change can happen if you work by yourself. That is just, at scale, it is not possible. You may have great impact at a very individual, super local level, but without any help from any other person or any other organization, it is likely that you won't go very far. And so it's about, all of these people sharing the very same mindset, as you just said, on wanting to put their time and resources and gray matter and brain cells to the betterment of society and environment. These people, because they already are on the same page, should unite a bit further. And WISE aims to facilitate this process of connection.
It's brilliant. It's a brilliant way to connect and get us all connected.
One last thing on this. That first is, you are not alone with this mindset, and it's a great mindset to have. I'm not saying one shouldn't be proud of it. I am proud to also bear this mindset of, yes, I want to do my best to find solutions to problems. That's basically what I'm saying. But really, the idea of connecting is not only about finding collaborations professionally. It's also understanding that you're not alone in that particular fight, and that you can easily also find friends and people to discuss, and that will understand you more easily.
And it does get lonely. I have felt it over the last few months. I felt it a lot, but it's so nice to know that, I'm not the only one feeling this, and we just need to find each other.
Exactly. And I think this feeling has needed to even be more in our physical corners. And so that's why we need this facilitation of connections by communities just like WAIST, and there are many others, to really remind changemakers that, yes, they're not alone, and there's a whole community that agree and supports and is ready to work together.
Very important. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Tell us about why it is important for the different actors of the society to come together, despite having their own agendas and despite having, their own goals, and why it is all the more important now in this decade of action that we all need to start thinking about?
It's a really important question. What we've seen with Y East is that people in organizations, especially because our brains are wired to be slightly self-centric, will always have a personal agenda.
Yeah.
I was teaching sustainable development earlier today, and I was really believing and embodying sustainable development means to kind of rewire our brains in order to think a bit more altruistically, not only about the people that are around you now and today, but also the people that are farther away from you geographically, and also further away from you in time. We're talking about thinking of future generations that in terms of how we use the resources that we have on this planet and how we consume them. We're talking literally about thinking of people that are not going to be born in thousands of years, but that is part of the mindset that needs to grow in order to be able to become more sustainable. And so, but I still think, and it does make sense as well, part of who we are also relies on survival and the fact that we need to also think about ourselves in order to survive and to live and to thrive, and that's completely normal. So one needs to accept this reality, especially when you are a community and the dot connector. One needs to really embrace and accept this reality that organizations will have their personal agenda, and that is okay, because they also need to build their own expertise and build their own the strength that can be complemented by other people's and organizations' strengths. Now, the main challenge is that on the spectrum from 100% altruistic to 100% competitive, we're very close to the 100% competitive. Especially so in India. Of course, it depends slightly on the different cultures and continents and countries. But we are still teaching our kids to be the ones with the best grades, to be in competition with the other in the classroom. How can we grow these people to think collaboratively instead of competitively when they grow up as professionals? I don't think we have any idea yet of what collaboration looks like, because we have been just bad at trying it out all over the world. We just don't know how to do it yet. We just don't know how to embrace fully that idea of collaboration, getting away from financial sharing, staying away from all of the resource sharing that always are part of that conversation. So not only is it difficult, I think it will remain difficult for quite a while, because it's about a whole mindset and cultural change right from the early age.
Yeah, that's such an interesting thing, because just last week I was listening to this episode. It was a podcast by Radio Headspace, and the host was talking about a very, very similar concept where we as humans are so used to thinking about financial success, economic success, and those kind of successes. But there is this way of thinking which started in Japan. When they do plan, they plan for the next 7 generations. They don't just plan for the current one or the current year or for a short-term gain. It's always for the next 7 generations. And that's the kind of mindset change that needs to be brought about to really lead the way forward, I think, for such work to be done. And like you said, it all starts with kids. I think at this point, it starts with the young minds, because they are the minds that can be shaped. Adults take some more time, but slowly and steadily, I think we'll get there. You've worked in very different capacities. You're working with Techno India Group, and you're also giving your time to Y East and growing it. So in the context of the sustainability space, how urgent do you think it is for our generation to embed social and environmental impact in everything we do? Everything we do from this day forward, let's say. How important is it for us to start thinking about?
It's always been a bit odd for me to understand how one can possibly not care about impact. I mean, I just don't get that mindset at all. So sometimes it's a bit odd for me to again be reminded of the fact that there are a lot of people that still don't really understand their social and environmental footprint and really don't care. Having said so, I think the question is not about if it's important or not. I mean, to me, that seems just so obvious it is. It's the how that is the blockage. And how do you communicate this as an urgent change, and how do you create that change towards impact? It seems even more urgent for me for a greatest number of people to realize that population is increasing, resource sharing on this planet becomes a bit more difficult day after day, because we are almost 8 billion people on the planet, and it becomes more and more pressing over time, because until we reach 11 or 12 billion, it's not going to go down at all by the provisions of the United Nations that are, foreseeing a slightly downing slope, but not in the next few years at least. And so to me, it is so peculiar to not assess at the individual level what you do that can affect other people around you, because by definition, you are on this same boat, a limited world, with resources and a growing number of people. And therefore, it makes a lot of sense for me to realize that if you take more, then people will have less. So it really is echoing this idea of circular economy that a lot of people now get to know more and more. And I usually take the example of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. I don't know if you know this foundation. It's out of the UK, and it's one of the big organizational references, talking, speaking, advocating for a circular economy. And the idea comes from this sailor, Ellen MacArthur, who set up a world record for sailing around the world by herself. And she had to hold weeks and weeks and weeks alone by herself on her small boat. The earth works exactly the same way. If we don't know how to handle our own resources and how to share it and how to consume it wisely, we won't sustain very, very long. That's the whole idea of sustainability. And so to me, if we just eat everything today, we won't have chocolate to eat for the future generations. That's the exact same idea. There won't be anything left on the boat, So yes, it's urgent. And the how is the real question behind it.
And I think the how is addressed by, of course, what you are doing and the work that you're doing, and by many other organizations who are also doing very wonderful work in the same space. It then, I think, comes down to, like we said, the mindset and behavior change. First the mindset and then the behavior change, which is the tricky part, and which is the part we have to all hold hands and
exactly.
get through.
I think one other interesting and important message to convey here is that there are so many ways you can contribute to make it better. You don't need to be this eco warrior in the streets. It really is not about that at all. If you are good at teaching, then teach. If you're good at advocating and lobbying and convincing people, then debate in parliament. If you're good at drawing and designing, use your communication skills to actually take messages further. There's so many ways. You don't need to become somewhere else to become impactful and aware of your own impact and do something about it.
How often have you thought about choosing a career path that works for sustainable development, but then stopped because it may not pay the bills? It is no doubt a common notion that deters most people from making social impact as their first choice. However, the tides are shifting and change is coming, and it is bringing with it the need for driven, caring, and compassionate individuals who value people and the planet over unsustainable growth. And that brings me to our next question, which is, you have advocated for financially viable and fulfilling careers. You've said that there are careers which will sustain one financially in the social and environmental impact space. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
I'm going to say it's such a key question because one can only understand that financial sustainability for many individuals is so key to the survival and thriving, of course, not only of them, but also their families.
Yeah.
So it's important. It's an absolutely important career choice criterion to bear in mind. Now, having said so, I always invite individuals that I get to talk to define their own career choice criteria. Mm-hmm. That is to say, if you do not really care about how much you earn, you just need the basic financial comfort, and what makes you really happy is feeling how impactful and meaningful you are through your career.
Yeah.
Then let it be like that, and drop, to a certain extent, you can drop this skyrocketing financial returns of your job, because it's not because it's socially prestigious somehow or socially valued. And who decided it was socially valued? I mean, you need to remain absolutely critical and think critically on what society tells you, because everything is social construct.
Exactly. So such an important point.
Yeah, I mean, I had an offer. Of course, the standards of living are not the same, but I had an offer in France before I came to Kolkata that would have paid me 5 times more than what I'm paid here. Do I care? No, because my circumstances here were different. I was very attractive to that particular position in that particular, geography, and therefore let me go ahead. It's by challenging yourself and really embracing who you are that you will learn more about yourself and keep growing. So that is the first point. Is yes, it's important, but the financial considerations of your career is important only if it is important for you. You have to build your own career choices and criteria. The second point is, but let me illustrate the first point first. I have a very good friend who is now the CEO of one of the biggest NGOs in Kolkata called Calcutta Rescue. And he previously professionally worked in the banking sector. And to him, moving from the private banking, very profitable sector to the NGO space, of course, financially, his salary dropped down.
Yeah.
But his well-being, the happiness that he gets from his work and the meaningfulness he gets from it is not comparable at all with what he was doing with the bank sector before. So really, that's the first and very important point. Second, there are more and more careers that can allow you to really well combine financial matters with impact. So, I mean, a lot of examples could be mentioned. You have foundations that do great social impact work. I mean, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, for that matter, they do have some money and they are completely focused on social impact with the foundation I'm talking about. Another one is there are more and more profitable sectors that are absolutely in line and in accordance with the Sustainable Development Goals. The solar energy or the wind energy sectors are great examples of that. It is relatively new sectors of the energy space that go against traditional energy sectors that are highly profitable, whose cost is not more than the traditional oil and gas and oil industry, and can be therefore for employees of this sector as profitable and financially sustainable. Another example is you have more and more consultancies, for example, that grow out of sustainable development purposes. You have, of course, the CSR laws in India and CSR overall in Europe and the US that have given birth to a lot of such consultancies that accompany companies for their sustainability transition. So it's just a couple of examples to let you know that not only do we need more and more people to choose careers that are impactful, but we need these people to be extremely competent with extremely well-made brains, because these are very, very, very difficult, complex issues to solve.
Yeah. And I think they require a lot of course, they require technical skills, but I think they require human skills as well to understand and break 100%. Down those challenges and put yourself in the other person's shoes and understand the problem from their perspective. I think that is a very, very necessary and important skill that we need to start developing.
The hardest.
And hardest as well. And that's why I always say it starts with the kids. We need to start with the kids. They are going to be the next generation. They need to, be more socio-emotionally aware and equipped to deal with the next set of challenges that we're going to face.
Well, fingers crossed. But on that, just one point on this, definitely the next generations will have a role to play, but it's also our generation to start showing the way, to
exactly.
start transitioning ourselves, which is also a very hard personal transformation, to really not only be aware of your impact around you, but try to readjust and minimize it. So we have to start ourselves too, and then lead or guide the other generations.
Yeah, definitely. So when you reflect on your journey so far, and you've told us about how your journey has transpired, what are some of the wins that you have celebrated? We always like to talk about wins here because I think that keeps us going, that keeps us motivated, and really helps us reflect on the work that's being done, and maybe a few big learnings that, have come out of those wins. Because with wins, you'll have a few challenges, because no win comes without its challenges. So through those challenges, I'm sure you have some learnings as well.
Well, some of them are personal, some of them are a bit more professional. So maybe on the personal front, I would say the fact of daring to move from Paris to Kolkata, which, to be very honest with you, was personally not a very easy move. It's two different cultures, two different environments. It really, to a certain extent, is all about rebuilding your life somewhere you don't know, because you need to make friends, you need to learn, if you can, the local language, you need to rebuild your professional credibility, you need to understand how professional cultures work. I mean, it's a full-time job.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think what I've learned from that is, so first, there's a bit of, I have to say, pride to have dared to do that and to have taken an offbeat path, or that was, the path that I felt the calling I had to follow in a very, I think, unique Pauline way. I always invite everyone to build their own path and not someone else's path. Ideally, each and every one of your professional and personal paths should be so unique, and as unique as you are as an individual. It's not written anywhere what kind of path you follow. So 5 years ago, if you would have told me that I would be in Kolkata, I would not have believed you. And the learning from that is, the more you challenge yourself, at the beginning it will hurt a bit because you're going out of your comfort zone. So the more that you challenge yourself, the more you learn, and exponentially so. You discover resources within yourself you didn't know were there. You discover places and people and realities you would never have discovered otherwise. So that is something I think I celebrate in my head, and I'm quite proud of.
I think you should be, because moving, because you're literally leaving behind your life and what you have made and developed and built over the years. So it's something you should definitely be proud of every single day.
Thank you. But I've also learned it's not all that black and white. I had this mindset before leaving. I was like, oh my God, I'm leaving everything behind. I'll never see my parents again, and blah, blah, blah. And actually, because we live in such a connected, fast world, you can be connected to two geographies quite easily, even if it's quite far away. So that was also another learning. And maybe on the professional front, one of the things I celebrate and have learned from a lot is to let go of all of the prejudices that I had about what a career should look like. I have a very odd career, if you think about it. I'm in Kolkata. I'm involved with Techno India. I'm involved with East. I advise for another Paris-based organization. I joined, I don't know how many organizations as an advisor or a board member. I sometimes get to guide a couple of startups. I mean, nowadays, even more than before, I think you can afford yourself to be a lot more flexible than the thought of, I'm going to start a career and therefore I'm going to be doing the same career 10 years from now. It doesn't work like that anymore. Every couple of years, or even more frequently than that, you can sit down with yourself, see what are the opportunities around you, see if you're good where you sit in your current job, see if you want to change or not. And if you do want to change, you have the possibility to. So really this idea of destructing the idea that I had of a career that needed to be in a big company somewhere based out of New York or Paris and work from there at least for 10 years, completely destroyed. at the profit of a perception of careers that is a lot more flexible and a lot more diverse, and through which I can learn a lot more on a daily basis.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'll just jump to the next question,
Sure.
which is our what if question. I always like to include this question because I think it helps me. It probably will help you, will probably help our listeners to really picture a world that we can help create together. So the question is, what if you were to address a group of young graduates at a career orientation workshop, let's say? What would you tell them and why?
I guess to reformulate and sum up in a way, I would tell them the path that each of you will follow is not written anywhere. It's up to you and your choices, that you will build this up from scratch and only for yourself and by yourself. And I would also tell them that they should never stop thinking about where they are professionally. There's always this introspection that they need to be doing. I don't know if you know this concept in Japan called ikigai. Ikigai, which is not really translatable in any other language per se, is really this energy that makes you wake up every morning, right? If you don't embrace a daily life and therefore to a great extent a career that gives you this energy in the morning, your life will probably be, unfortunately, boring and sad.
Yeah.
Or more likely to be so. And if we reformulate the ikigai, it's also considering your career along the lines of 4 main dimensions. Mm-hmm. Try to do something that you like or you love doing. Try to do something that can make you earn money. As we discussed, it is important. Try to do something that you're good at, because of course, if you're not good at something that you don't want to do as a job, you won't thrive.
Yeah.
And do something that the world needs. That's the sustainable development element to it. And so no matter where you are in your career, always question where you are, always have this introspection thinking process on what are your strengths? What do you like? Are you happy where you are? Etc. etc. And if the answers to these questions are no, I'm not happy, I need to change, I want to keep learning, then it might be time for you to move. Yeah. But just listen to yourself probably a bit more than other people's advice.
Wonderful. Wonderfully said, wonderfully articulated. I'm sure it inspires me, so I'm sure it's going to inspire a lot of people, hopefully. Good. And this is the last question about gratitude. I believe gratitude is very important in our lives, and I personally practice it every day. It keeps me going, keeps me grounded, keeps me motivated. So today I ask you, Pauline, what are you grateful for?
I am grateful for the freedom of choice that I've always had. And that includes a lot of people, including, firstly, my parents, who are parents who have the mindset of being happy if their kids are happy. And they won't question your decisions if they feel that you know where you're going as an individual. And there are a lot more such people that I'm grateful to be surrounded by, that gives me or let me the choice, the power of choosing for myself. And I think that's what I would be the most grateful for.
It is not the first time that we are talking about a decade of action in this show. It will keep coming up in our conversations because the need for thinking global and acting local is real, very real. If there is a voice inside you that wants to be a part of this change, don't fight it. Trust it, embrace it, and run with it. Our planet and its people are counting on you. And that's a wrap on today's episode. Are you feeling moved, inspired, want to know more about how you can be the change? Then check out what Pauline and Y East are up to. All links are in your episode notes. Don't forget to share this episode with your close ones. That is the best way to start engaging in meaningful, change-making conversations. We can't wait to hear from you. So write to us or shoot us a message on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Until then, take care and keep asking what if.